Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry, I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, today's video came recommended over on Discord. It's from Historically, and the video is called The Philosopher Everyone Hates. And I saw from the thumbnail that this is about Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, I know basics about Nietzsche, so this one is going to be really informative to me, and I hope I can add some things as you guys join me in learning more about it. All right, the video is linked down below. Please support that. And thanks for liking and sharing this video. Let's get started. All right, this video is doing really well. It's got over 1 million views in the, 4 months it's been out. So let's see what I got here. I don't know if I've watched this channel, to be honest.
The German philosopher who single-handedly killed God, preached for the rise of the Ubermensch,
oh, cool artwork.
a race that is better than others. The man who lived a life of luxury, wealth, and plenty of women.
Every philosopher.
No, won't cut it? Fine, the truth then. Friedrich Nietzsche, the Prussian philosopher, who started as a man of God himself, who wished and preached best to each and every individual person. The man who lived a life of sadness, delusions, and death. In our history, it's not uncommon that someone is left misunderstood, to the point where we kill them because, you know, they just speak gibberish and we can't have that here.
But Joan of Arc spoke with God directly. England knew that. That's why they loved her so much. And the French... Oh wait, my history's all off.
Discovered the elements polonium and radium? Yeah, sure, woman. And I'm Santa Claus. Earth spins around the sun instead of the other way around? Enjoy prison for the rest of your life, lunatic. You cured your husband from his illness.
A loose house arrest where basically he was forced to never be able to publicly talk about his ideas about heliocentrism and things.
By using basic medicine? Say hello to the fishes, witch. Okay, that's... Really? Again? Listen, you want to know the true story about Friedrich Nietzsche?
I do, actually.
I get that, really. But it's not a nice story. It's one,
History's never
not
nice.
The saddest life I have ever studied. But something is convincing me to tell you anyway. So here we go. This is the...
You know, amazing how many philosophers and I guess thinkers that way are known for having so much like depression or anxiety. I don't know if they just think themselves into a panic with their philosophies and... Yeah.
Story of perhaps the most important and misunderstood philosopher yet, with a beautiful mustache.
I'll be honest, I know I have a lot of misunderstandings about Nietzsche. You hear him often get tied up with, you know, later on like Nazi ideology or like take parts of it, but he wasn't really aligned with that, even though he was much earlier. There's so many things I feel like with Nietzsche that get kind of lost in the weeds.
Key facts, part 6. Our story begins in Rücken, a village in Prussia, which is here in present-day Germany, where a small cry can be heard from the Nietzsche's residence.
Bring back Prussia?
The firstborn son of Karl and Franziska Nietzsche has entered the world.
Did he come out with
Now, I don't know if creativity lacked in the family or if they just really loved the king, because they named this little adorable boy Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, named after the king of Prussia, who shared the same name. The brand new family was a simple but religious one. I
feel like there would have been so many like Wilhelms and Ottos coming out of Prussia at that time.
Karl being a Lutheran pastor for the local church himself. The love between Karl and Franziska continued, and 2 years later, a little sister for the young philosopher was born, Elizabeth, and another sibling, Ludwig, a year after. Life was going great, but that year, tragedy struck the family.
Oh no.
The family man, the cheerful, loving, religious dad, got diagnosed with a serious brain illness that caused him excruciating pain and rendered him unable to do even the most basic tasks in life. Seeing his father degrade from the happy memories he had to this state must have been traumatizing for the 4-year-old boy. And unfortunately, that trauma wasn't going to get better anytime soon. Or ever, actually. Because good old Karl, dead, just like that. And his little adorable 2-year-old brother, dead as well. Unexpected illness, straight up. This ain't a fairy tale, son. Welcome to reality. Seeing his father and younger brother die within months scarred Friedrich massively.
By the way, not uncommon, just, I mean, for the era. It's kind of, they're like on the cusp of industrial medical advances and things. You know, you'd lose like a quarter of your children from your family back in the old days.
And that wasn't only noticed in the history books. At school, he was often described as emotionless and way too mature for his age, which is to be expected from a
dead
traumatized
inside
child.
immediately.
But hey, at least he had his friends though. Oh, there he goes, off to live with his father's side of the family. Now, don't worry, little Nietzsche. Life might have kicked you down in the mud, and then some. But
Love
even
the
the
art
deepest
style of
wounds
this
can be
channel.
tended
I don't know if I've
to.
watched
Just
historically.
not in this day and age where people simply tell you to suck it up, even if Satan himself revealed the unbearable secrets of our existence to you. With the father and younger sibling gone from their lives, the family
were
moved to
haunted by the
Naumburg,
ghosts.
where they lived together with the sisters of Karl. Alas, even after all of this that happened to Nietzsche, which most of it he didn't even understand, he tried to stay positive in life and did his best in primary school to make himself and his mom proud.
Powering through the
which
sadness.
he did. He excelled in Christian theology and went to a Christian high school after, where he also graduated, though with a bit worse grades. It started to look like Nietzsche was going to follow his father's footsteps, and even more so when he decided to study theology at the University of Bonn. Life there started alright, but it quickly worsened. The two leading professors there really didn't like Nietzsche due to his personal views, to the point where they had full-on arguments with each other.
Oh, is he a debate? He was a debate lord. I mean, all these philosophers were. All the famous philosophers, they're all narcissists, and that does help them in a way with getting some of their views out and articulating them and being confident and defending them and standing by them. But so many of them are just they're Reddit debate lords.
Nietzsche's social life wasn't great either. Mind you, he might be a lot older than when he got his traumas, but due to him being the only man in the house and having the responsibility of taking care of the family, he never got to fully recover from his childhood PTSDs, which did make Nietzsche a bit of an outsider. He tried for 2 semesters to get into the university's social life, and even dabbled into composing music, which he apparently really sucked at.
Not a likable person.
But then he decided, you know what, I am genuinely not happy here, and left the university. It was at this point in his life where Nietzsche started to doubt his Christianity. When a person is continuously thrown into a pit and forced to crawl out of it again, just to be kicked back down, they start to wonder why. What's the point of putting all this energy in getting up there again if I keep getting knocked back down anyway?
Some people do find, can find theology to be just self-defeating. It is a never-ending hole that you can't, potentially get out of. But there's some people that I think are just wired better to be able to find like peace in that, I guess, and to find value and whatever. But yeah, for some people like this, I think you're just wired differently, that it doesn't give you the feedback that you want. It doesn't give you the answers or whatever that it is you feel you're craving, and you might look elsewhere.
The answer to this question differs from person
So many
to
philosophers
person.
so many philosophers were, pushing against the status quo ideologies of their time. That's why they become popular. Go back to like ancient Greece, where Socrates, who was pushing against a lot of the dogma of the kind of Athenian society and their relationship with their belief system, the gods, and how that intervenes. And, that's what they use, by the way, for charges to be able to put him to death. But I think you have that with a lot of these people.
Romantic would answer love. An addict would say drugs. And a devout Christian, God.
Let me go back.
Answer love. This question differs from person to person. A hopeless romantic would answer love. An addict would say drugs. And a devout Christian, God. But what if God is no longer an answer for the believer? Giving up and staying down here would be equal to giving up on life. So that can't be an option. The only choice they have is to start looking for something else to give them comfort. And this is exactly where Nietzsche is at right now in his life.
A pointy
Could
onion.
there be another reason for everything? He wasn't quite sure yet, and when he asked his mother and sister for help and input, they scolded him for leaving his prestigious study and questioning his faith. This was coincidentally also the turning point in his life where his relationship with his family worsened dramatically. But do remember his sister. She will come back to haunt him very much later down the line and even after death. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Nietzsche was left even more mixed and confused than he already was. But he did know that he had to switch studies and get into a new, fresher environment. So he switched his study to philology and applied at the University of Leipzig to study ancient languages.
So was he left with quite a bit of money and things like that? I mean, being able to make these life changes is usually indicating that he has the means to do so, that he's not bogged down with the financial responsibilities or whatever, that he is able to do this. So was he left from his father with, money to be able to do this? I mean, his father's gone. You in so many scenarios, you'd think that he would basically be raising, the family now, the sister and the mother. But he seems to be pretty well off.
There, his life started to get better. He made a couple friends and even got on some good terms with some of the professors. But he didn't have luck with women, even though he craved love. His faith in Christianity dwindled as his years in university went on, to the point where we can confidently say that he abandoned his love for God. Though it wasn't common for people to abandon their faith in the 1800s, it wasn't completely unique either. After all, the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment had been going well on their way. But still, it was a very hard decision to make living in a very religious Germany. Okay, little pop quiz. What happens if you abandon all your norms and values that you've been told from birth are the truth and solely the truth, and when you have no luck with women? That's right, we are going to a brothel. Now, I don't know if Nietzsche had bad luck.
Tough with women, having trouble with their religious beliefs. This guy is totally primed for a radicalization here. If this was the internet era, yes, he would have been a radicalized, Redditor, that eventually can turn into something, quite pathetic. But anyway, different times.
Or maybe God took his abandonment a little too personal, because he attracted syphilis immediately after, making him physically weak for the rest of his life. At least wear protection, bro. Nonetheless, this didn't stop Nietzsche.
Dude, you're hanging out at the brothels. Like, it's gonna happen, man. Man, is this guy gonna be he's incel coded here?
Studying hard, and with a passion for languages and many glasses of milk, he excelled as the top of his class, which landed him a job as a professor at yet another university, though now in Basel, where he apparently really did well as a professor. His classes were engaging, and he valued the personal relationship with each and every one of his students. During his pastime, he even volunteered at the local hospital. What a great dude. I'm sure he lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
You contracted dysentery and diphtheria by unprotected exposure to the sick you helped cure. You will no longer be able to continue the job that you love, and you will be plagued by unrecoverable health issues for the rest of your life.
You died of dysentery.
Bro, I told you! Even though Nietzsche tried hard and long to keep doing what he loved, life yet again kicked him in the mud and forced him to retire teaching altogether at age 34. But hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? God is dead.
There you go.
If you are a Christian yourself, you might be offended or even angry at this bold statement of Nietzsche. But let's talk about what he actually meant with the sentence. The quote is from one of the first books he wrote, named Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It's a philosophical novel about a man called, spoilers...
So I haven't read this. Zarathustra, that's interesting. It goes back to Zoroastrianism.
Zarathustra, who lived in a fantasy-like Roman time. The story starts with our main character, who just finished his 10 years of solitude on top of a mountain, where he spent his time studying humanity and its created society. With 10 years gone and plenty of ideals to share with the rest of the world, he decides to pack his things to descend the mountain to spread this message. He knows it won't be easy, but no one ever said that the best way is the easy way. He descends the mountain and stumbles into a local village where he finds men of God, but also those who strain away from religion. He crosses through the busy market and finds himself a podium to stand on, in an attempt to gather everyone's attention. Originally, he was only noticed by a couple of people, but just like a spreading fire, more and more people waited in great patience for what the man had to say. God is dead. The words cut through the chatter of the market like a hot knife in butter. The usually bustling place, for once, fell silent as the crowd reacted with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and even anger. Some in the crowd gasped, their faces twisted in confusion and outrage. Others exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to process such a bold declaration.
Wouldn't they just be
A
like,
few
"You're
individuals
crazy"?
laughed nervously, dismissing Zarathustra's words as the ramblings of a madman. But amidst the confusion, there were those who listened intently, their eyes fixated on Zarathustra with a
already
newfound sense
primed
of
for this
curiosity
message, right?
and intrigue. They recognized something in
No,
his
he's not
work.
talking about in this the actual Zarathustra, right? Zoroaster, basically the founder of Zoroastrianism, which predates the Romans as well. But was it just like a fictional character?
Something that
Named after him,
resonated
though?
with their own doubts and uncertainty.
Here, if you ever listen to like debates between believers and non-believers, and one of the arguments that will come with that is like, like how do you have purpose in life without God or something? And usually here you might hear like a non-believer say, well, it's what you give your own purpose, like you give your own purpose. And some people, again, I feel like there's so many things that people are primed for here philosophically, like we were saying beginning with Nietzsche, where people can find some kind of positivity with that notion that I can make my own, my own purpose. But then there's those that don't or can't, and like that idea of something, it's laid out for them. Their purpose is laid out for them.
And so, my friends, Zarathustra proclaimed, it is time to embrace your inner greatness. It is time to cast off the chains
Not what the real
of convention
Zarathustra.
and to chart your
The real Zarathustra was Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion. It actually predates other monotheistic religions, very influential to others. Belief in a god, Ahura Mazda.
own course through
Anyways,
the chaos of
obviously a different
existence.
character.
It is time to become an Ubermensch.
Yeah, the famous line, the Ubermensch.
Now, if you chose this book for your book summary test, don't take my summary as the truth. Those are not the exact words he said, but it's how we interpret them today. Nietzsche had the great gift of saying things like an ancient Roman historian would. While that definitely makes him cool and
That was the
stand
vibe I
out
was
from all
getting
the
to.
average plebs, it also made it kind of impossible for the average person to understand what he was preaching, and more often than not, caused his books to be misunderstood. For example, the phrase "God is dead" angered the religious community,
Yeah.
which, mind you, is an overwhelming majority of the people at the time. This caused
Is this
him
one of
to
those? Is this one of those things that a lot of people say about people in history that they were like ahead of their time? Like, don't you think that message would probably resonate better now?
not only fail to become popular, it also caused him to be called mad by many, including his friends and family. But that's just rude. Nietzsche would never turn mad. At least, not yet. One of the most remarkable things about Nietzsche's life is that even though his life
Look,
was
his mustache is getting longer.
quite horrible to say the least, he stayed positive and kept trying to better everyone else's life. Live with passion. Nietzsche argued that individuals should
Well, his living with passion gave him what every STD in the book.
pursue their dreams and passions with all their might, and that a life lived with passion and intensity was worth way more than one lived passively. Number 4, embrace suffering and adversity, ties in with that as well. When life doesn't go your way, embrace it and appreciate the suffering, as it will make you more resilient and stronger as a person.
Doesn't kill you, makes you
5.
stronger.
Create your own values. Nietzsche
go.
famously criticized the church and established regimes for forcing their values on their followers. He argued that people should create their own values based on their unique experiences and perspectives on life. He believed that true morality comes from within rather than being imposed by external authorities.
Interesting. I wonder, with that, adding on to that, what it's just, based on yourself, but do you base it on a rational understanding of the outcomes of your actions? That's what you might see, like maybe somebody that professes more like a humanist idea of philosophy and ethics, is use a rational basis for what are the type of ethics and what is morality based on the data of the outcomes.
Number 6, be true to yourself. Trust your own instincts and intuitions above anything else. In the end, it's you who is your best friend and also your worst enemy. And finally, the 7th recommendation, embrace the eternal recurrence. Friedrich Nietzsche created the concept of eternal recurrence, arguing that a person should live their life exactly in a way that they would want to relive that very same life that they have now for eternity. basically emphasizing
It seems like no regrets. Get a tattoo, spelled wrong. No regrets.
to live to be authentic and to enjoy every single moment that you have. What is most surprising about those 7 recommendations is that it contains genuine love and care for those who want to listen to it. We went through Nietzsche's life earlier, and we can safely say that it hasn't been nice to him. Most people who would have gone through this would have
Here's the thing, though. Like, looking at this life that he's had, it's not like from this stuff like extraordinary. You know, like these type of struggles, so many people go with these. And yeah, there's probably reasons lots of people can be depressed and sad, and even in those same conditions, could also have a lot of reasons to have joy and happiness.
hated or cursed everything around them for treating them so unfairly. But Nietzsche turned that hate and disgust in love and appreciation instead.
This is where I've kind of been learning about this with philosophy, about the different types of emotions that you can have and which ones are going to set you on different paths. So like there's one, like with this, you can either, you kind of have 2 paths. You can go pure nihilistic mode, which means just like nothing matters. It's useless to try, that kind of thing. Or a motivating way. You can go down those paths. And again, depending on maybe the way you're primed or whatever it is and your own willpower with that, those are your options going here. And it does seem like for him now he's turning it into, you know, fight back and get motivated. But
just like he recommended others to do so as well. Unfortunately, those recommendations only work on people when they listen. And that was the last thing that the majority of the people ended up doing. Nietzsche was outcast by society, and wanting to get away from it all and recharge himself, he went on a year-long vacation with 2 of his philosopher friends, Lou Andreas Salome
obviously
and
got money
Paul
too.
Ree.
You
They
just go
rented a
chill
house
for a
together
year.
and started planning to create their own society with only like-minded people. But love got in the way. Both Paul and Nietzsche fell for Lou, and both of them even proposed to her, and both of them got rejected. Nietzsche thought he finally found the love of his life and couldn't let her go. He ended up proposing 3 times to her, and every single time got rejected. The rivalry between Paul and Nietzsche caused the idea of a philosopher's utopia to fall apart, and ended the vacation earlier than planned. Where then Lou revealed that she was only there to see if women and men could live together without sexual desires. Basically saying only there to see if women and men could live together without sexual desires. Basically saying she used Nietzsche for her own studies. Additionally, randomly as well, she married Paul anyway, leaving Nietzsche heartbroken and altogether even more broken than before. Every man, woman, or child has a breaking point. A point where you just can't anymore. And for Nietzsche,
the nihilism injection, here it goes.
Way too late, it had reached. In 1899...
All right, is he going to go full incel now, though, and just turn to hate?
Only at 44 years old, reality kicked in and overwhelmed the philosopher. When walking down the streets in Italy, he noticed a man...
It's like he went backwards. You know how I was telling you there's that fork in the road between motivation and nihilism? It's like he went back and took the other exit off the freeway.
Horse with a whip and ran towards the... Walking down the streets in Italy, he noticed a man beating up a horse with a whip and ran towards the animal, flung around its neck to protect it from the whip and cried, "I understand you, I understand you." He then collapsed on the floor and his vision went black. Nietzsche never recovered from that day, and the rest of his life was rendered unable to take care of himself and was unresponsive when spoken to. He completely fell into madness. He was forced to move in with his sister Elizabeth, who he really despised. And things took a turn for the worst when Elizabeth took the creative liberty to gather the materials and writings of Nietzsche that he couldn't finish and interpret them in her own ways, completely changing what he argued for at the end of his life.
Oh, okay. Now we're getting the no Germans. Okay, so I was telling you, I wanted to be able to detangle a lot of the stuff that, yes, the no Germans are going to draw from this philosophy, but I also know it's, you know, interpreted differently, you know, from them and how other people see this stuff. And you can't intertwine Nietzsche with this completely, this Aryan ideology like you're seeing here,
causing him to be even more misunderstood. Nietzsche passed away a year later and got buried next to his father Karl, who was also buried in his hometown at Rücken. His misery didn't end there. because Elizabeth continued to misinterpret his works with her own personal beliefs, which just happened to be those of fascistic nature. This caused Nietzsche's work to be praised and loved by the Nazis, who used his own word Übermensch as a way to say that the pure German-blooded race was better than others. Even a certain man called Adolf Hitler expressed his love for Nietzsche, and even visited Elizabeth herself in the same house Nietzsche lived in his last years, to express how great Nietzsche was. The thing is, Nietzsche despised fascism and anti-Semitism. He praised individualism and didn't like authorities telling how people should live their lives.
So we call this co-opting. His ideology was co-opted by a group. You can have that where you have a symbol. You ever seen that? Like a symbol changes from being something to another, or a word is co-opted by a group and the definition changes, or weaponized in a lot of ways. Looks like that's what's happening with Nietzsche. He's been co-opted. His works have been co-opted and weaponized.
So even though he was put in the Nazis' classroom, he didn't belong there in the slightest. His name was cleared after the Second World War, and in the midst of the Cold One, people started to appreciate him and follow his teachings. And in the day and age we live today, with atheism and individualism at its peak, which can be argued could be for the better or for the worst, we almost entirely live in the world that Friedrich Nietzsche tried to guide us to, or maybe even warn us about. But there are two things.
It does seem like the world is more like what he described, or how he viewed the world and what he advocated for,
that we do know for certain. Firstly, Nietzsche was way ahead of his time. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, we are still human. And the crushing weight of reality is too much for any man to handle. Or as Nietzsche himself would put it, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process, he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you.
Final thoughts. All right, great video. Very, the visuals were great. The artwork, you had the music, really well produced. Again, I knew very little directly about Nietzsche. It was always very indirect, and again talked about within the context of what Germany is going to be like in the 20th century. So I mean, you kind of get to, detangle those things, but learn a little bit more about that. So very fascinating to me to be able to do this. Now I know I got a lot more to look at there and learn more about these philosophies. So anyways, thanks again for recommending this to you guys. Leave this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Again, the original video is down below. I need to go back and see if I have watched historically before. I'm not sure if I have, but I know I've been getting recommendations. So if this is a channel you want me to keep watching, send me some more suggestions over on the Discord server. And with that, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.